Hello and welcome to Cab Chat. This is episode 284, the world's longest running taxi podcast in the world.
Yeah, we thought we'd get to 300 a bit quicker, so we split the episodes into two and release twice a week. Yeah,
so we can get there a bit quicker. Not really. It's because people on YouTube's concentration span is about 20 minutes actually. So that's why we decided to cut it down from an hour down to 2 30-minute slots every week. So,
it allows us to be a little bit more calibrated as well, doesn't it? You know, if we can title the episode a bit better, people can say, you know what, I don't want to watch that episode.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to watch this episode. So we can just have one long topic and just riff on that. And if people want to listen to it, they can. If they don't, then they can just watch next week.
Yeah, exactly. So don't forget, if you do like what we're doing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below because we need more subscribers to be able to be monetized so we can get this thing.
So it's not a hobby, so it actually doesn't burn money out of Jamie's pocket.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, burning lots of money at the moment. So this week we're going to be talking about London's two-tier system. And is it really a two-tier system?
Yeah, I had to get you to clarify this. Like, what are the other tiers? What is this?
Well, I mean, I can see that we are going to end up with a 6-tier system or 2-tier system. I think at the present, we don't have a 2-tier system. I think presently we have a 4-tier system, but very shortly we're going to have a 5-tier system. And, we could end up with a 6-tier system as well. So, shall I explain?
Yeah, go through them. What are they? So I think I can get 2 of these.
Go on, right. You go for the 2.
Right. Taxis. London licensed taxis. And then private hire. London private hire.
Right. But
now you.
That's at the present, and that's what everybody talks about. London's 2-tier system. But is it really a 2-tier system? Now, you've got, as Tom quite rightly said, you've got London licensed taxis, i.e. us, London licensed private hire, which came into force in 1998 under the London Licensed Private Hire Act. Then you've got private hire vehicles working in London, licensed in other areas, such as Wolverhampton, that has the biggest number of private hire vehicles per capita than anywhere else in the country.
1 private hire vehicle for every 7 residents.
Yep. So what
was it 9? 7 or 9 was close.
What it means is nearly everybody in Wolverhampton's a private hire driver. So I don't know who's using them. You've also got unlicensed drivers touting in London. Now, I thought this was a thing of the past, but apparently there are quite a few touts operating outside hotels and bunging the door staff to get the lucrative airport journeys.
Well, and you have touts, of course, on the airports as well, whether they're private hire as well or if they just exclusively tout. I mean, the thing is, it has opened. All these things kind of go in vogue and cycles, don't they? Like they'll clamp. It's a whack-a-mole strategy, isn't it? Years ago, they'll clamp down on it. They'll have efficient workforces to stop this kind of behaviour. But then if it goes on for long enough without people getting caught, then people will then just start doing it the other way. And it's probably in whoever's interest. Not saying I advocate for touts, but as you sort of alluded to, what's the point of being licensed to then do some of these activities? It creates its own tier system that you're better off not being licensed because you're not in the system to then get condemned. I mean, you'll never be able, if you get caught, you'll never be able to become a private hire driver. So it does slam down that element. But these sort of people would evade capture much easier because they're not in the system. But
exactly.
Alas.
And also it becomes, if you get caught for touting, it's just, I think you get taken to court and fined. The only way it's going to affect your driver license is if you're caught with them in the car.
Because you're driving without insurance.
You're driving without insurance, which you could get 6 points on your driving license for. But then if they're not that worried about being caught in the first place, have they actually got a driving license? have they actually got insurance?
Well, I guess as well, it's another tier system because it doesn't come back to the. It's not actually. It is within TfL's remit or whoever the operator might be to clamp down on this because then it ensures that everyone goes into their own protected cars. But also, it's not really a problem until that, say, tout wants to get licensed because they'll go through a criminal check and go, right, okay, have you been accused of touting or whatever? And then it's in the TfL policy that you can't, or like you're under the DBS check or whatever, that you're not going to be allowed if you have offences of doing that.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd never be licensed. But then TfL haven't got the power to stop somebody. That's down to the police in London, the Metropolitan Police. So, and are the Metropolitan Police actively sort of nicking touts? No, not at the moment. They've had a bit of a purge at Heathrow Airport where they stopped about 25 cars. Well, I'm not being funny. At Heathrow Airport, you could probably do that in about 20 minutes, 25 cars in 20 minutes quite easily if you've got enough officers there. So it wasn't a very prolonged campaign against touts at Heathrow Airport. So it was only a very short, I think, box-ticking exercise to a certain extent. So that's what we've got in London at the moment. But we are going to have another licensed tier coming in very, very soon, which we are going to have licensed pedicabs, rickshaws in London. So then we're going to have a 5-tier system. You could argue that we've already got a 5-tier system because they're running around, but then at the moment they come under the class of touts because they are touting for business. But they're going to be licensed in London in October of this year, I believe. And so we're going to have the 5th tier of licensing of, hireable transport in London will be the pedicabs, and they're going to come with their own restrictions and things like that.
Hold on a minute. Wait.
Yeah,
it goes deeper. My brain just clicked.
We might have another tier as well.
No. I've got another tier after that.
Go on.
You do that tier, and I'll do another tier. Okay, here we go.
So you've got the licensed rickshaws and pedicabs that are going to be in London. So that'll be your sort of 5th tier. But then, of course, and I think this is what Tom may be alluding to, he might have something completely different in mind. You're going to have those that will then operate outside of the licensing of pedicabs. Yeah. And you're going to end up with tier number 6, the unlicensed touting pedicabs, as we've got at the moment. Because will they all want to be licensed? I very much doubt it.
Well, if you can have touting vehicles, right, and that's surely a much bigger department where there is resources and people, compliance officers who go out, or I guess compliance officers don't really have much jurisdiction over touts, but they should do. But I don't know if they do or don't. Who knows? Then who's going to do it for such a small department for the rickshaws?
Yeah, exactly. And so that'll be tier number 6, won't it? I'm going to lose count of all these tiers in a minute.
There's then the 7th, yeah.
So and the 7th tier, you've seen them on the streets of London, the Waymo cars and autonomous vehicles, or driverless taxis as they call them. And we've been here before. They're not taxis, because the thing that defines a taxi is a taximeter. And we've even got taxi drivers arguing the point, well, everyone just refers to them all as taxis now, so just live with it. No, I'm not going to live with it. We're taxis. They're private hire. It's going to be tier number 7.
What about unlicensed? Unlicensed robo-taxi
vehicles, yeah. So we could have tier
the fridge that's gone AWOL and it just starts walking down the street and picking people up.
It does beg the question, what is the point of licensing?
Yeah.
Because if we've got vehicles working in London, and I keep harking back to these V-Class that I keep seeing going backwards and forwards to the airport. The vast majority of them have no TfL roundel in the window, because the vast majority of them are sort of 24, 25, 26 plate V-Class vehicles, and TfL have never licensed a 24 diesel. So, because it's got to be zero emissions capable, and a diesel isn't zero emissions capable. So, they're all licensed in licensing areas outside of London with no identifying marks on them whatsoever. So are they licensed or are they not licensed? I have no idea at all. And if you can get away with operating without a license, going backwards and forwards to Heathrow Airport, what is the point of a private hire private hire driver's license? What is the point of it? Is it really worth the paper that it's actually printed on? Because, you've got drivers in London that have gone through the TfL licensing regime, and then you've got those that have opted to go through Wolverhampton because it's a lot easier, it's cheaper, it's quicker. Do they do the same checks? Probably not. And they're operating in London as well, or all over.
It's almost kind of like an opt-in scheme. Like those sort of schemes you have online where it's like, oh yeah, if you just kind of you can opt into it, but it's like.
Yeah. It's a bit like the Leon Daniels on-off insurance policy, isn't it? The old private on-off insurance policy. They can switch it on, switch it off, and that sort of thing.
Which was like drones. I think there's more people who know about drones needing licensing and go, oh, is that drone license? Is that drone license? But no one asks the same question about minicabs and go, oh, is that minicab license?
No.
Where's the minute license too?
They just get in it. And what the thing that makes me laugh as well, you get all these people saying, yeah, well, I ordered an Uber or a Bolt or whatever. And, when the car turned up, the person whose picture was on the app wasn't the driver that was in the car. And you say to them, but did you still get in? And they say, yes. And you think, really? Really, you still got in the car, even though that person whose face is on the app is not the person driving the car. You still got in the car, did you? And I always say it really depends on how much you value your life, doesn't it, really? And some people have got a very low value on their own lives. Because I definitely wouldn't get in the car. If the driver pulled up and it's like, supposed to be Fred, and he's a white guy, and, the driver that pulls up is like a Chinese or a black or an Indian or whatever, or, and you think, no, it's not the right guy. No. See you later, mate. Go on, bye. Going to report you.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
But it's weird how, there's some things in life that people put a lot of, value or judgment on, but then in other areas, they won't touch. It's like, everyone knows not to have plastic straws because it's bad for the environment, or let's not have our clothes made in child labor factories or whatever. Let's just be ethical, or let's get free range eggs, right? But then in the same token, they'll use an app, a company which kind of very clearly exploits their drivers for far below living wage. And I just find that baffling that people can hold both those things true. People who are kind of a bit, let's say, lefty and against, capitalism and big business and stuff like that. It's like, well, London cabs are kind of a socialist system where we all kind of operate within the same bounds as one another. It's kind of like a level of communism. We've got the same metered rates. We're all the same vehicle. Then you have the big behemoth that is surge pricing, changing pricing, what they like, trying to extract a profit, a big profit for the big company and stiff over the drivers. That's more capitalist, but the lefties kind of go in there.
They also order all their food from Deliveroo, Uber Eats and Just Eat, and, they love to exploit the driver, the rider or whoever it is that comes and delivers the food to them. They complain about immigration, and then, we know that a lot of these immigrant hotels have got, the riders, the bikes and things like that. And then they use them, they fuel the fire. I can't understand people, really. And these people are being exploited because they're being paid a pittance for delivering your food to your door. It's really strange. I mean, I used to go in a chip shop around the corner from where the workshop was, and a delivery rider pulled up on his scooter outside the chip shop, and he came in to collect an order. He looked at the address, and he left his scooter outside the shop and just walked across the road diagonally and knocked on the door. And I think, what has this country come to where people are just, got that lazy they can't just walk across the road to get their fish and chips? They've had to have it delivered across the road. I think that's exploitation, really, of people that are not as fortunate as some of us. But yeah, so we're going to end up with a multi-tier system, one that, people are not going to recognise what they're getting into, because there's going to be so many different licenses, so many unlicensed. And the other problem we've got is that TfL, Transport for London, even though their enforcement officers were out in force outside St Pancras Station the other day and checking all the private hire vehicles that were pulling up there, if a Wolverhampton driver pulls up, they can't stop. They can't even ask him anything.
Yeah, sorry, mate. I don't talk to strangers.
Yeah, no, sorry. Who are you? TfL? Yeah, you don't license me, mate. Go on, go away. See you later.
Yeah, sorry.
It's like any other area they operate in. If they're in sort of Manchester and operating on a Wolverhampton licence, a Wolverhampton enforcement officer comes up and says, what are you doing here? It's none of your business, mate. You don't licence me, do you? So go on, jog on, off you go. It's ridiculous. This was all brought about by the cross-border hiring situation, where people are allowed to, private hire are allowed to go and do work elsewhere without any checking or any restrictions or whatever. And I think it's something that needs to be dealt with. And I know it is being discussed in the higher echelons of government at the moment as to sort of trying to thwart the number of cross-border hirings. But the private hire industry are saying, cross-border hiring shouldn't be stopped because it'll damage our business. Well, of course it will, because you're operating outside of the law, basically.
The
way the law was intended. You've sort of twisted it to your own means to a certain extent. So, yeah, it all needs to be dealt with. Otherwise, we're going to end up with more tiers of licensing than we know what to do with.
Yeah. Even the pedicab one, I mean, one thing I've sort of always said is that if a mass manufactured vehicle, cabs or private hire or whatever, need 2 MOTs a year, what does a pedicab need?
Being cobbled together in a shed.
Cobbled together, possibly like just crap box welding or whatever, with a car battery just strapped to it, powering, and
powering a loudspeaker and loads of LEDs and flashing lights and things like that.
Is there going to be someone at a TfL testing? So they're going to test them at the same NSL centres that we do, or are they going to have pull-up places? Are they going to reopen the ones that shut in central London?
Cycling one of them down to Sidcup to get it tested. It's a long way to go in it to go and get it tested.
Yeah, and the thing is that they'll remove, like we said on a previous podcast, that they're going to be done on time, right? That's going to be their kind of meter, if you will, per minute. So they're going to all remove the electric. They're just going to pedal it, let their tyres down. So there needs to be a standard in the same way that we can't change the size of our wheels on the cab because it's going to throw the meter calibration out. They're probably going to let down their tyres so they go slower.
Yep. And also, when they go to be tested, our TfL going to have decibel meters to check the loudness of their speakers on their cabs as well. And also, maybe brightness meters to check the brightness of the LEDs.
Yeah, the lumens of the lights, you get certain areas. Is it a proper version of Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas Is You"?
And are they going to have PRS licenses? Performing Rights Society licenses for public, because it's not just private
broadcasting it, yeah,
public broadcasting. So you're publicly broadcasting to the streets of the world. So you need a higher form of PRS license.
That'd be another tier of I'm getting lost of it all now. Another tier of rickshaw drivers, the broadcasters.
The broadcasters and non-broadcasters. And also, is the pink fur fire compliant as well?
Yeah, exactly. You've got if you have if you rent out a house and you've got a sofa in there, then you have to have the fire label still attached.
Also, if you have your taxi retrimmed in leather, you have to provide TfL with the fire certificates for the material that's been used in your taxi. So, unless it's an approved company that's done it and they've already submitted fire certificates for the type of materials they use, then it's acceptable. But if it's a different company you're using, you've got to provide the fire certificates for it. You have to jump through hoops. So, is every bit of faux fur going to be fire compliant? And CFL's, to their regulations. There's all sorts of things. Also, we have to have a credit card system fitted in the back of our cabs, and are they going to have a permanently affixed, approved credit card system fitted on their rickshaws? There's another tier of those that have got and those that haven't. The list just goes on. I think TfL are really going to have to sort of maybe times their enforcement team by about 20.
Yeah.
Just to cope with the amount of enforcement. And getting back to autonomous vehicles, if they run someone over, who's liable? If he jumps a red light and hits a car, if you jumped a red light and you hit a car and it's proved that you jumped a red light, the likelihood is you're going to get nicked for driving without due care and attention. That jumps a red light, which we know that even with drivers in them, they've been jumping red lights. The one that drove through a police cordon the other day with a driver in it. Surely was the driver asleep? Or was he just sitting there thinking, no, I'm just going to drive through there?
Well, even like fixed penalty notices from the boroughs. Like,
who do they go to?
Well, yeah, exactly. Who's it going to go to? Will they pay? Will the boroughs love it because they go, they'll just pay it? Or will they just, the Waymos and that go, jog on, we ain't paying it. We'll see you in court. And then they'll just drag it out, and then the boroughs just won't have the means of being able to stand up to these big tech companies in the same way that no one else can.
But I mean, if it gets done for speeding, which is probably unlikely to be honest, but, just say, that there's as Mark Munro said in his video at the weekend, if there's a pop-up roadwork and they've got a speed camera on the roadwork, now the car knows that road's 30 mile an hour, but it's down to 20 mile an hour because of the roadworks, and there's a speed camera there and it gets done going through the roadworks. It's just driven through at 30 mile an hour. Who gets the points? And if they don't get points for driving, over the speed limit, does that mean that nobody else should get points anymore? Because what's good for one, you can't have one rule for one and one rule for another. If you set a precedent by nobody getting points for an autonomous vehicle, that means all vehicles going through a speed camera, the driver shouldn't be liable for the points.
Yeah, because it's the vehicle that is the cause of the danger, and of course you're then in command of that vehicle, so someone is somewhere, so someone has to be liable.
Yeah, exactly. So who's going to get the points? It's bringing up all sorts of questions, isn't it, really?
I mean, what's it going to... I mean, the knock-on of the insurance industry. Like, maybe they're going to be less likely to be in accidents. I don't know. So maybe it probably... But even if they are going to be less likely to be in accidents, the insurance companies are going to need paying somehow. So in a roundabout way, our insurance is going to go up whether they have accidents or not.
Well, I mean, you say they're less likely to be involved in accidents, but then we've all seen the video of the three Waymos in San Francisco that were all bumping into each other as they were trying to manoeuvre around each other. So, not too sure, to be honest. And London is different to the wide open avenues they have in America. It's a totally different ballgame, I think. Will they be able to cope? I think on many of the wider roads they would be able to cope, but they're not going to be able to cope with zebra crossings. They're not going to be able to cope very well.
I think that's the only thing that most of those kind of things are being edited and deleted. Like there's a lot of roads in London now are very much like, this is the lane. You get in that lane or that lane. There's no ambiguity to the road network anymore. There's no common sense or figuring it out now. Everything is a junction that is set instructions of how you do it. Obviously, if it's your first time approaching the junction, then you have no idea really, and that's what's confusing for most people who drive it. But for these autonomous vehicles that have test driven them, they'll have already known what the correct lane is to then get into. And I imagine slowly over time, all the stuff that has ambiguity to it, whether it's they can merge in together, can't they? But yeah, like zebra crossings, they're slowly getting rid of. I'm just thinking of them all now, that it's all traffic lights and lanes. There's no the notion of a roundabout is slowly being removed.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see how it copes on that little mini roundabout, top northwest corner of Berkeley Square and Davy Street and Mount Street. I mean, but to be fair, I mean, private hires can't even do that once.
Yeah, and also cope with driving into the Savoy Hotel.
Yeah.
It's not going to cope with that because it's going to be driving on the opposite side of the road. Mind you,
Yeah, the Savoy should just change it every week just to kind of screw people over. Just have a sign you have to read when you go in. But again,
and what happens if someone drives around London with a GPS blocker?
what do you mean? Oh yeah, like what happens if the internet signal goes out? Well, yeah, I guess it's GPS, isn't it? Not. Yeah, I guess they'll
both really, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't know whether it gets because it's probably got a lot more tech in it that's not going to be communicated by GPS. It's probably.
But then what if the network goes down?
I was going to say because the network's already pretty naff in places anyway. Like 4G, 5G, and that because of the major.
Well, listen, where I was over the weekend, didn't have any. We had full 4G signal, but couldn't even look at the weather.
Yeah,
get a web page up on a browser or anything like that. Couldn't do anything really.
Well, that will happen because I mean, invariably, I think every computer in existence needs a reset, like just to turn off and on again at some point. So, not saying they're all going to do it, but there's going to be cases where it needs turning off and on again, and like who's going to be there to do it? Like, what's the scenario going to be when that actually happens?
You know, you've been driving along in your LEVC, and all of a sudden the screen goes off and reboots itself.
Yes, yeah. You know,
often just decides
every car, every computer, mobile phones, everything needs to do that at some point because it's just you can't cover every single eventuality of that software, of that hardware, and if these cars are going to be running a lot, like it's gonna happen somewhere with someone. And we'll be on the news at some point.
Yeah. So let's recap. How many tiers are we going to have? We're going to have licensed
dozens.
London taxis. Yeah. Licensed London private hires. Private hires licensed outside of London. Touts. Yeah. Licensed London rickshaws or pedicabs. Unlicensed rickshaws or pedicabs because I can't see them all wanting to be licensed. And then we're going to have the autonomous vehicles as well. So basically, we're going to have 7 tiers of vehicles plying for trade on the streets of London. And it looks like Tom has just lost his internet connection for some reason. So I'm going to wind this episode up. Thank you very, very much for watching. And don't forget to subscribe down below. I've been Jamie the cabbie, and he was Tom the taxi driver. And you've been watching Cab Chat or listening to Cab Chat. Don't forget we are available on both audio podcasts if you want to listen while you're driving around in your cab, and also on YouTube. Twice weekly at the moment. We're coming up towards our 300th show, and we'll be there very soon. So until next time, thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.